Hi, so I'm here with Sandro Zurhake. He's a Dutch journalist with the broadcast organization NOS, and he recently wrote and produced, I guess, TV and online versions as well, a story about children with MECFS being given cognitive behavior therapy with exercise sort of thrown in. And that got a lot of pushback from some of the usual suspects who are still promoting those therapies. So here we are to talk about it. And hi, Sandra, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
so just how did you first come about to do the story in the first place?
I'm covering public health now for about almost 4 years. So I started in the middle of the pandemic, and I've been following the long COVID for a long time right now. And I didn't know anything about long COVID or ME/CFS before the pandemic. Um, but because of while covering long COVID, I also got to meet a lot of patients who have ME/CFS, and they told me a lot about what it actually is. And through the years, I heard a lot of stories about how they are still being forced the cognitive behavioral therapy, how it's forced upon them, but also if you refuse to do it, how like when you're an adult and you try to get some social benefits because you cannot work because you're unemployed or you're unemployable, that if you also do not agree to participate in the CBT, then they see it as a refusal to cooperate with social services, and then you don't get anything,
Right.
stuff like
And,
that.
and
And
to be clear, the CBT in this case also is not separated from the exercise activity.
uh,
Part of the
yeah,
CBT is to encourage people to do more, so they're kind of built in together.
yeah. In the Netherlands, if you follow the medical guidelines, how they are down here in the Netherlands, and when it is specifically for ME/CFS, it is used with graded exercise therapy or some form of exercise therapy. Yeah, that's right. So I already made a few stories more about adults, how they are, let's say sometimes, let's say, are being put under pressure economically, socially. But also, I heard a lot about how children yeah, well, let's say maybe a bit abused, as I would say, and also the parents, because of the pandemic, I noticed that there's a lot more knowledge, public knowledge available about what MACVS actually is,
Hmm.
and also a lot of knowledge about what happened with the PACE trial and stuff like that. So people know more so than I think 6 years ago.
Right.
Uh, and so they start to protest, and they say, no, no, look, I have read the reviews of the PACE trial. Oftentimes they have read your stories, your analysis about the PACE trial, and oh, it's true. It's really like you are quoted often here,
Well, thanks.
with
I just want to say that patients had all sort of done a lot of analysis before me, and I kind of
yeah,
collated a lot of what patients had already did. So I thank
yeah, yeah.
yeah, just to
But
say that.
but I think you have put it very nicely together.
Yes, thank you. I think that's probably true.
Yeah, but that's the thing, It's like there's one point of information where people can get it from, and they did. So, but the effect is the consequence is that they start really to get more and more into conflict with doctors, who in the Netherlands still very much believe and follow the guidelines, the old
Mhm.
guidelines. And in the Netherlands, it's like this: if you go against or become in conflict with doctors who follow the medical guidelines, when you go against the medical guidelines in the Netherlands, yeah, well, then you are a suspect, maybe a suspect of child abuse, a suspect of what we call Munchausen by proxy. I don't know if it is the same
Yes, yes. I mean, nobody really, people don't really use Munchausen by proxy anymore.
uh,
But that was the term, and it was used
yeah,
in
or
England and
or
US.
or, or child abuse by falsification, stuff like that. And yeah, so
And I think
uh,
I think your story, one of the news hook or a news hook for your story was the survey that had been done by the ME Association in the Netherlands of parents who had had conflicts with authorities
yeah,
over treatment of their children.
yeah, yeah, it's true. Like they asked me many times, like, why don't you do a story about it? And I say, yeah, well, the problem is I don't have any figures about it. You know, how big is the problem? Because not any research was done into this. So they did it themselves, and they did it in a it was not a representative study, but it was quality. The quality was high. So
It was a
um,
survey, a survey. It was a survey, so that
yeah, but
has the,
it was a well done survey. So it gave me a starting point, and from there on I could build, and also it gave me a reason to ask questions with the authorities and social services, and of their well non-answers often there was enough to go on. Let's say there was enough reason to pursue the story,
Mhm.
which I did. Yeah,
And do you have to convince editors first? Is the process that you have to put a proposal together and then get,
yeah,
buy-in or yeah.
yeah. But it was more about are the medical guidelines in the Netherlands still current? That
Mm.
was the big question.
I see. Okay.
So yeah, so I've done like months of reading of the reviews and all the debate about the PACE trial, for instance, and I've all put it together. I've all written it down in let's say a coherent way for internal use that everyone understands it because let's say I'm the expert on the newsroom, so I have to convince people who don't know anything about this.
Mhm.
So you know, for me, the trick was to translate it to layman terms, and
That's always the challenge.
yeah, that's and that's what I did, and then yeah, like first I showed it to a colleague of mine, a fellow investigative reporter, and to see if they can shoot holes in it,
Mm.
and they didn't really they couldn't. And then I asked my immediate editor, and she also was like, "Yeah, this is solid." And then you go to the editors in chief, and they were well, they were a little bit apprehensive, like, "Oh my God, if are we really gonna do this? Are we gonna um, go against doctors, the or the you know the how do
Were
you
you
call it?
were you getting pushback beforehand from the
Not yet, because they didn't know yet. So first, like I said, first I want to get everyone on the same page in our organization.
Mhm.
Then we will show what we have before we go over before publication,
Right.
which I did, and then this massive blowback already started. You know that they um, um, uh, like they start to in a way they started to try to make me a little bit scared because they said like, hey, if you're gonna do this, you are spreading medical disinformation, misinformation.
So this is
And
when you approached them for comment because you
yeah,
approached them for comment
yeah,
before and they were
yeah.
telling you don't do this story.
Yeah. Like first, it was like a background story and off the record off the record conversation. I want to be on the record, but they said no. Let's first do an off the record conversation. I'm like, okay. And then, you know, they tried to convince me or to scare me into thinking that I would be spreading medical misinformation and that I would put a lot of patients into harm's way because they would, yeah, because of my story, they would refuse the treatment of CBT and great exercise therapy. That was what they tried to do. They tried to scare me into thinking, hey, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But because of the months of work and preparation, I wasn't scared about it. But then they tried to do the same with my editors in chief, and because they are not experts on this subject, they were a bit scared. But so then they just sent a lot of old let's say scientific articles, like from Hans Knoop, for instance.
Oh, you mean that so that yes, they were sending
Yeah,
them
yeah,
from
so they would send all the, let's say, the RCTs that would prove that CBT and GT works, But those were all the studies that were covered by the National Institute for
Right.
Health and Excellence in Great Britain, and all said like, hey, they have a very low quality or a low quality. So it was quite easy for me to for me to show other reviews of these scientific articles
Mhm.
they sent to us and said like, hey, look, this is so old and it doesn't reach the bar of quality. So I said we have a lot of important institutes like Institute of Medicine from the US and NICE from Great Britain, and even our own healthcare council
Right.
has did the same in 2018. Like I said, hey, we are not the ones that should explain ourselves. It's the other way around.
Right.
And well, after a week of intense discussions and debate internally, they're like, okay, yeah, we agree. And so then we went forward with the story and we published it. And I'm amazed by how much reactions it got from patients in the Netherlands, but also later on from medical personnel and psychologists
Oh, the
who,
ones who signed the letter in support you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, for instance, yeah. But also, I've also had a lot of email correspondence with psychologists and doctors who were not public, but also first started out like, hey, what are you doing? You are making unfounded accusations, etc., etc. And then they would also come with the old clinical studies around CBT and GET, and then I could, at the same way, I could show them like, hey, look, this is you guys are obsolete in your way of thinking. And also, I could explain them, like, for instance, they are using the Fukuda criteria so that they can include people with a major depression who do not have ME/CFS. So
Mhm.
yeah, then you can say maybe CBT and GET works because it works with people who have major depression sometimes. But I say, hey, this is just a very flawed research design.
Um,
And I could convince most of people, like now when I have a discussion with them, they're like, okay, they're open to it. So
well,
that
that's
was
so.
a good
So what
sign.
happened with both the association, the Pediatrics Association,
Yeah,
and Psychotherapy Association, I guess, yeah,
yeah.
uh, wrote complaints, or what happened then afterwards? What was the nature of their complaints, and how did you choose to
Yeah.
respond?
Yeah.
You don't have to
Well,
go into
yeah.
all the details of everything they said, but just in
No,
general,
no, no, no.
what
Well,
was
well,
the
the basic complaint, specifically of the Association of Pediatrics in the Netherlands, was that our what we wrote and what we broadcasted was unfounded. Our criticisms, which is actually a uh, what we did was just repeating what the Institute of Medicine already said in 2015 and NICE of Great Britain said in 2021. That's the only thing we did. We repeated their criticisms,
right?
and they said that was unfounded, and that the NOS, our broadcasting company, that were spreading dangerous information. So when you when you say to me, when you accuse me of dispersing wrong information, I take that very seriously as a journalist because I take a lot of effort in making sure that everything is right, is factual. So then for the first time, I said, okay, I'm just gonna write a rebuttal, a very long one of 11 pages, and I will just go sentence by sentence from what they are putting out in their response, and I'm just gonna comment on it with all kinds of referrals to scientific to science.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, just to put a strong rebuttal, and I did, and there is no response ever since. So it's quiet now.
And
So I think
the same with the what was the name of the Association of Therapists or CBT people?
yeah, yeah. There's a special association for behavioral psychologists and
Right.
cognitive therapists. Yeah. It's pretty much the same. Um, it has been quiet since. They don't, but because I don't think they actually want a debate because they are scared of the debate because I
They
think that they,
lose because they lose. If anybody looks at
yeah,
this data, they lose. So
yeah, exactly, yeah.
uh, um, what What do you have follow-ups in mind, or what is next?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, like because happily there were a lot of doctors and psychologists who actually supported my reporting with their open letter, in which they asked or yeah, asked the Association of Pediatrics and cognitive behavioral therapists, like, hey, please be open to what's being said here and be open to international science and be open to improvements and change. And well, I've heard that for now, the Association for the Cognitive Therapists, that they are open to it and they will be in conversation with the people who wrote the letter.
Okay.
Uh, the Association of Pediatrics, it's
Mm.
quiet. For now, I think I'm just, yeah, there are many stories to be made, but the thing is that now, for next year, 2026, there is a revisement going on of the adult medical guideline when it comes to ME/CFS.
Mm.
And how it is done in the Netherlands, you get a board, a committee with all kinds of people, like also from patient associations, but also from
Like nice committees, like nice
yeah,
did.
yeah. And they have to look at all the science which is now available and come to a new guideline. But also people like Hans Knoop, who is of course very well known for his he's a professor in I believe medical psychology in Amsterdam, and he's a known proponent of CBT and GT for ME/CFS. So he's also in this committee, and so let's see what's happening, because I think there will be a big conflict, a big collision of opinions and views, and we have to see what happens next. So in next year they need to come with a conclusion and with a decision. And when they, for some reason, still will be going with CBT and GT for ME/CFS, yeah, that will, for me, it will be a very, good reason to just continue with stories. And but then I will also line up, I think, people from the UK, people from the US who are experts in on this subject matter, doctors, professors, etc., and let them comment on what is happening in the Netherlands. Because then I won't be a participant in the debate, but other scientists and doctors from countries we take seriously in the Netherlands, and let's see what happens then. But we have to wait, and maybe it will change. Maybe they will follow NICE, and that I think will have a big impact, because if it starts with the adults, I think it also trickle down to the guidelines for children. So then many things will change, I think.
Okay, Sander, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome.